Okay, so the levels of ecological organization. So all of this information was summarized on page 64. As I recommended before you started the project, it would have been highly useful to you to read the few paragraphs on page 64. Okay? So scientists recognize a hierarchy of organization in the environment. Each level has different unique properties that result from the interactions among its components. From the broadest to the most specific, these levels are the biosphere, right, which is the entire globe, which is what you ended your project on. Ecosystems. Communities. You guys know what comes after communities? Excellent. Populations. And last but not least, organisms or individuals. If you want to put individuals, that's fine with me. So the biosphere. What is the biosphere? The biosphere is the broadest level of ecological organization and includes every other level. So pretty much it's the whole Earth. The biosphere contains the combined portions of the planet, in which all life exists, including land, water, and air. So every single living thing is found within the biosphere, all right? Here's our lovely little planet. So the biosphere extends 5 to 6 miles above Earth's surface to the deepest parts of the ocean. So I just don't want you to think that the biosphere is like the top layer of the Earth, right? Like whatever we walk on and the birds land on is actually like all the way down into the depths of the ocean and all the way up into our atmosphere. It includes the whole thing. And obviously, life is not distributed evenly throughout the biosphere. Most organisms are found within a few meters of the surface of the land or ocean. Right? There's not a lot of things that inhabit like a mile above Mount Everest in the sky. And then so far, we don't know if there's a lot of things that live in the deepest ocean trenches. Ecosystems. So the biosphere is composed of smaller units called ecosystems. And an ecosystem is a collection of all the organisms that live in a particular place together with their non-living or physical environment. So we could say our school is like a mini ecosystem. From 8 till 3, we all exist here, right? Within these school buildings and the tea portables and in each individual classroom, and you guys sit in desks and we use our Chromebooks and everything. So this is like a little mini ecosystem. An example might also be a pond ecosystem, okay? What organisms might be living in this ecosystem besides this swan? Shout it out.
A duck.
A duck. Fish.
Bacteria.
Mold. Bacteria. Excellent. What about the plants? Grasses, algae. Excellent. Okay? Good. So fish, insects, turtles. I didn't think of turtles, but all right. Plants, algae, bacteria, protists, which are like microscopic organisms that you usually find in water. They're the ones that if you don't drink clean drinking water, you do not feel so good. You get a tummy ache. Right? Amphibians and birds. You don't have to write those all down. If you just write a couple, 3 of them, 4 of them, that's fine. What are some of the non-living components of this ecosystem? Huh? Rocks. Logs. If they're dead logs, right? Grass is living. What about the water? Is the water living?
Rocks.
Dirt. All right. So here are some more in detail examples of things that maybe you wouldn't think of immediately. So the level of oxygen and carbon dioxide dissolved in the water, is that going to matter to the fish who live in it?
No.
Yes. Yes. If there's no oxygen in the water, can the fish live?
No.
Nope. They will die. The supply of nitrogen and phosphorus. Now, I know we haven't talked a lot about plants yet, so to speak, but plants require a source of nitrogen and phosphorus in able to grow. If there's no plants in the pond, is that going to be a problem for the other animals in the pond? Yes, you bet. The pH of the water. If you go up to a pond and dump a bunch of acid in it, is that going to be good for the fish?
No.
Probably not. Or if you dump a bunch of base in it, for example, like Drano, you're like, I don't need this bottle of Drano, I'm just going to dispose of it in this pond. Do you think that's going to be good for the fish?
No.
Heck no.
When we find out.
Oh God, no. Okay? The amount of sunlight received by the pond. Obviously, a pond in Mexico is going to look different than a pond in Canada. So the interaction between the physical environment and the living organisms will affect their survival, obviously, right? For example, if North Korea does nuclear warfare, is that going to affect our survival?
No.
Yes. Okay? Nuclear warfare, even in the form of nuclear energy plants that have melted down in the past, that's a non-living physical environment issue that has severely affected humans in the past. Okay? If you look at Chernobyl, which was a power plant that melted down like way back, 60s? I don't know exactly. It's still a dead zone. There's absolutely nothing that lives in Chernobyl where it happened because nothing can survive that level of radiation at all. And the people who lived in Chernobyl when that happened, they're still dealing with generations and generations of like birth defects and mutations and things like that because they were exposed to so much radiation during that issue. Something we can look into later if we have a little extra time. All right, communities. A community is all of the living organisms found in a particular place. Okay? So if we said Etiwanda High School is our community, then we would have the freshman class, the sophomore class, the junior class, senior class, the teachers, the administrators, the squirrels, the birds. What else do we have? Anything else?
Bees.
Bees, excellent.
Flies.
Flies, for sure.
Ants.
Yes. So I was going to say nothing lives out here in the T's, but I guess ants do. Ants are the only thing that have made it out here. In the pond ecosystem, used as an example above, the fish, insects, turtles, plants, algae, bacteria, protists, and amphibians make up a community, right? We kind of covered that already. So a community may contain thousands of species. A scientist who studies communities studies the interaction between these living organisms, okay? So if you think of Finding Nemo, and remember how Nemo and his dad, did his dad have a name in that?
Yeah, Marlin.
Okay, thank you. They live in the sea anemone, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't sting them at all because clownfish have a special adaptation where they can live within a sea anemone without getting stung. But can Dory go into the sea anemone?
No, because she gets stung.
No. Okay, even though she forgets that every single time she tries to go in there. All right, populations. A population includes all members of a single species that live in that area. So at Etowanda High School, we said there were all those different populations, one of which would be the human population on campus.
I forgot the dates on
Oh, okay. Communities are composed of many different populations, right? And if you think about neighborhood community, you can even think about the different, populations of people within your neighborhood community, right? There's the little kids, and there's the teenagers, and then there's the super old people. I just moved and I found out that my neighbor, 2 houses down, is Officer Bob.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Oh, I like him. He's nice. If you're a teacher, he's nice. How's that? He's very nice. The security campus officer with the mustache.
one that choked out that kid.
It's being recorded. The kid probably deserved it. All right, organisms. The simplest level of the organization in ecology is the organism or individual. An organismal scientist would concentrate on the adaptations that allow organisms to overcome the challenges of their environment. So this would be like just studying Nemo. Not how Nemo interacts with other things, but just looking at Nemo. Or just looking at Dory. So the theme of ecology, let's look at this, is interconnectedness. That is a test question. Ecology is considered the interconnectedness of life, of the world. You will need to know that word, interconnectedness. Whenever I say ecology, you should think interconnectedness. I feel like it's a weird word. So no organism is isolated. All organisms interact with other organisms in their surroundings and with the non-living portion of their environment. The survival of the organism depends on these interactions. right? If you were completely isolated from every living thing, you could not live because you would not have food, right? You can't eat concrete, unfortunately. No, I'm just kidding.
Vegetarian.
You eat plants. Plants are living.
Oh, that makes sense.
All right, so there is interconnectedness in each ecosystem. There is a network in which organisms are linked to other organisms and to the non-living parts of their surroundings, okay? That's just redefining it again for you, trying to drive it into your head. Yes. So there is interdependence, meaning everything depends on everything else, right? The members of an ecosystem are dependent on one another for their survival. The plants depend on the animals to give off what? Who remembers from our last unit? We give off carbon dioxide so that they can use it in, what do plants do? Yes. Look it, finally this lecture comes full circle. Bless you. Right? The animals depend on the plants as their source of? What's the first thing? What do we need to? No. Oh my God. Plants as a source for what? What do we inhale?
Oxygen.
There you go. Okay. Food. Shh. You guys. So food and oxygen is what plants give us, and we use them for cellular respiration. So the theme is interconnectedness and interdependence. So disturbances. The balance is affected when disturbances occur. Obviously, right? A forest fire, a drought, a flood, that's all going to have an impact on the biosphere. So disturbance is an event that changes a community by removing organisms from it or altering the availability of resources. Disturbances might include, you only need to write 2 or 3 of these, fires, floods, droughts, storms, or human activities. For example, if there's a forest like that and then we're like, psh, we don't need a forest here, we need a mall here, that's going to be a disturbance. Mm-hmm. So ecosystems are affected by a variety of factors. These 2 factors are divided into 2 classes. Biotic factors and, yes, abiotic factors. Biotic means it's what? Living. Abiotic means non-living.
Oh my gosh.
All right, we are so close. Biotic factors are the living factors, okay? Living things that affect organisms. These include every living thing an organism might interact with. Look at these lovely birds. Biotic factors affecting a bird might include parasites, yummy. Pathogens, awesome. Tiny seeds the birds eat. The competition with other birds for nesting sites, for mates, for whatever. Okay, a hawk that might prey on a smaller bird. And you only need to write 2 or 3 of those. You don't have to write them all. All right, abiotic factors are obviously the non-living factors. Okay, you were supposed to label on your assignment 5 abiotic factors, if you read the directions. Abiotic factors would include things like the temperature, humidity, pH, salinity, oxygen concentration, amount of sunlight, the type of soil. So if you put rocks and things like that in there, or an iceberg, that would obviously be soil type, so to speak. Rainfall, or if it was the ocean, then it would just be the fact that there's water, okay? Climate, wind and precipitation. So which two abiotic factors are the major determiners of distribution of organisms? The temperature and availability of water. That's why no one lives on Antarctica, right? The temperature is too extreme. Does anyone live in those massive sand dunes that you see like out in the Middle East in the desert? No. Like the empty Sahara Desert. Because there's no water. All right, abiotic and biotic factors are dependent upon one each other. The growth of a plant is dependent on getting nitrogen from the soil. And the amount of nitrogen is directly affected by the plants that are absorbing it. All right, so biotic and abiotic factors determine the survival and growth of the organisms and the productivity of the ecosystem. So once you are finished with the slide, you can go ahead and submit your notes in Google Classroom and close it up.